The Stoic gives his full presence to one thing at a time, whether he's reading, creating, listening, or thinking. He's all in, because he knows shallow attention always leads to shallow results. You can skim through life, dabbling here and there, but what does that leave you with? Half-finished projects, half-hearted conversations, half-lived days. Deep focus, on the other hand, creates impact. And this depth isn't just a productivity hack, it's a philosophy. It's the belief that your time is sacred, that your work deserves respect, and that your attention is the most valuable currency you own. You weren't born to live distracted. You were born to build something meaningful, and meaning doesn't come from scattered effort. It comes from immersion. Focus isn't just about closing tabs or putting your phone in another room. It's about entering a mental space where noise fades and clarity rises. It's about choosing to give your energy to what matters, not what screams the loudest. But focus alone isn't enough. You need restoration, not the kind of rest that's just a disguised pause in the grind, but the kind of rest that renews your spirit. The Stoic doesn't treat rest as weakness, he treats it as wisdom. He knows the mind is like a blade. Without recovery, it dulls. Without stillness, it scatters. So he rests with the same level of intention he brings to his work. He chooses deep rest, undistracted rest, the kind that replenishes, not just entertains. And this rhythm, deep focus followed by deep rest, is where real power lives. It's how you create flow. It's how you stay sharp. It's how you build consistency without burning out. Most people sprint until they crash. The Stoic doesn't sprint, he paces himself. He respects the cycle. He's not chasing hustle for applause. He's building longevity for purpose. So, how do you apply this? Start by carving out space, not just in your calendar, but in your attention. Create blocks of time where nothing else exists but the task in front of you. No switching, no checking, no multitasking, just depth. And when the time for rest comes, rest fully. Don't scroll and call it recovery. Don't numb and call it restoration. Step away, reflect, breathe, sleep, walk without your phone. Let your nervous system exhale. Let your mind breathe again. Because here's the truth. Scattered effort and shallow rest will only lead you to exhaustion without progress. But deep focus paired with real recovery, that combination compounds. It sharpens your edge, it brings back your presence. And presence, not pressure, is what builds mastery. So ask yourself honestly, am I truly focused when I work? Am I truly resting when I stop? Or am I stuck in a cycle of half effort and half recovery that keeps me running but never arriving? The Stoic refuses that cycle. He chooses intention. He protects his attention like treasure because he knows this. Whatever you give your full presence to will give you back a fuller life. Time discipline is self-mastery. If you want to know how much a person values themselves, don't listen to what they say. Look at how they treat their time. The careless scattering, the anxious hoard it, the unaware let others steal it. But the disciplined, they guard it like it's sacred, because they understand a deeper truth. How you manage your time is how you manage your life. And beyond that, it's how you manage yourself. Time isn't just a tool for productivity, it's a mirror. Every hour spent reflects your focus, your priorities, your standards. And when you treat time casually, you send a message to yourself, to the world, a message that says, my life can be directed by circumstance instead of conviction. My values are optional, my presence is negotiable, but when you take ownership of your time, you reclaim agency over everything that flows from it, your habits, your results, your identity. Self-mastery doesn't begin with willpower. It begins with awareness. It begins the moment you stop saying, I'll try to find time, and start saying, I'll make time. The disciplined person doesn't wait for motivation. He creates rhythm. He doesn't outsource responsibility. He sets boundaries, not just with people, not just with distractions, but with himself. Not to be rigid, but to be real. Because he knows the enemy of excellence isn't laziness, it's drift. And drift happens the moment you surrender your time to whatever knocks first. And this is where Stoicism shines. It reminds us that we don't control outcomes. We don't control people. We don't control the future. But we do control how we spend this moment, right now, this breath, this choice. That's where power lives, not in the abstract, not in the someday, but in the immediate. In the decision to wake up early, to begin anyway, to finish what you said you would, to stop negotiating with weakness. The Stoic doesn't just manage his schedule, he masters his presence. The Stoic commands his attention. He shapes his inner world through outer discipline. But here's the mistake most people make. They think time discipline means restriction, that it's a prison, a rigid way of living stripped of spontaneity or joy. But the truth is, it's the opposite. Real discipline frees you. It clears away the clutter. It eliminates the noise. It gives you space to actually live, not just react. When you guard your time, you earn the ability to say yes to what matters because you've already said no to what doesn't. And in that clarity, something powerful returns. Joy returns. Peace returns. Presence returns. You stop chasing life in fragments and start experiencing it fully. There's a quiet confidence that comes from mastering your time. You no longer have to explain your worth. You demonstrate it in how you move. You no longer have to prove your value. You embody it through what you prioritize. That's what real strength looks like. Not chaos disguised as busyness, but structure shaped by vision. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, scattered, or unmotivated, don't ask, how do I get more done? Ask instead, am I honoring my time? Because time is never the real problem. Discipline is. And when you reclaim it, you don't just organize your day, you elevate your life. This is self-respect in action. This is self-leadership. This is stoicism lived, not just studied. Master your time, and you begin mastering everything else. Most people drift through life blaming time. They say, I wish I had more of it, as if time were hiding from them, as if the universe were unfair. But time was never the problem. Discipline was, clarity was, the courage to say no, that was. And this is where stoicism cuts through the noise. Your time is your life. If you waste it, you waste yourself. If you guard it, you grow into the person you were meant to become. When you begin treating your time as sacred, something shifts. You feel different, you speak differently, you walk differently. You no longer beg for respect, you embody it. You no longer chase purpose, you create it hour by hour. Because every small decision matters. Every intentional moment rewrites your story. And the more your time aligns with your values, the more powerful and peaceful your life becomes. So if you're tired of feeling lost, distracted, reactive, start where it all begins. With your time, not next week, not when life slows down, but now. Reclaim your hours, simplify your commitments, follow your rhythm, say no more often, and above all, remember this. Your time is a message to the world about what you believe you're worth. Make it say something true. Make it say something strong. If this episode helped you refocus or rethink how you live your days, share it with someone who needs it. Because here's the reality. We live in a world that rewards speed, celebrates shortcuts, and seduces us with instant comfort. But behind every shortcut is a silent cost. And behind every quick reward, a hidden price. The Stoic doesn't chase what's fast. He waits for what's real. He knows a simple truth that most ignore. Everything meaningful takes time, and everything that lasts is built on discipline. This is the power of delayed gratification. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they can't wait. They abandon their growth for a dopamine hit. They trade long-term peace for 5 minutes of ease. But what if that constant urge to satisfy yourself now is the very thing holding you back? What if your greatness isn't missing? It's simply postponed, waiting for you to stop trading the future for the present. In this episode, we're not just talking about self-control. We're exploring the inner strength it takes to say, not yet. To sacrifice the short term for the sake of the long game. To build a life not ruled by hunger, but led by vision. Because that's where real power lives. Not in reacting to every desire, but in rising above it. So let me ask you, are you ready to step into that power? Are you willing to stop trading your future peace for present pleasure? There's a quiet war going on inside all of us. The battle between what feels good now and what's right for the future. And this battle, though invisible, defines everything: our health, our success, our character, our peace. It doesn't always appear as a dramatic fork in the road. More often, it shows up in the smallest choices. Do I scroll or do I study? Do I sleep or distract myself? Do I comfort myself now or build something that will comfort me later? And in those subtle, daily moments, most people choose the easy path, the quick hit, the escape. At first, it feels harmless, almost invisible, like nothing really changed. You indulge, you scroll, you delay the task, and on the surface, life looks the same. But slowly, silently, something begins to shift, not on the outside, but deep within. Every time you give in to short-term pleasure, you reinforce a pattern. You whisper to your mind, this is who I am. I choose relief over strength. I choose comfort over clarity. And repetition makes identity. That choice becomes your default. That default becomes your story. And one day, you wake up realizing you built a life ruled not by values, but by impulses. But the Stoic lives differently. He doesn't reject pleasure, he reframes it. He understands there's a deeper kind of satisfaction that doesn't come from indulging, but from mastering the urge to indulge. It's the calm that follows self-control, the quiet pride that rises when you resist the easy way out, the peace that waits patiently behind discomfort. The Stoic knows that true pleasure is not the goal, it's the byproduct. It flows naturally when you choose what's right, even when it's hard. So ask yourself, what kind of life do you want to live? One where every mood dictates your actions, where every urge pulls you away from your purpose? Or a life where you guide your impulses instead of obeying them? Where you can delay comfort in order to build real contentment? Because here's the truth, every unchecked pleasure has a cost. Sometimes it's obvious, wasted time, lost money, broken health. But sometimes the cost is hidden, your confidence, your momentum, your peace of mind. The Stoic sees the cost before he pays it. That's wisdom, and this discipline, it isn't just about saying no to the world. It's about saying yes to something greater, your future self, your highest values, the kind of life that only comes from consistent restraint. Because pleasure taken too early often steals what could have been deeply fulfilling later. But when you wait, when you earn it, pleasure no longer controls you. It serves you. Imagine your life if you delayed just one habit, if you paused before indulging, if you redirected that energy into something real, something that compounds over time. That's the difference between regret and pride, between chaos and control, between wasting years and building a legacy. So ask honestly, how often do I trade a lifetime of peace for 5 minutes of escape? And what would change if I didn't? The Stoic already knows the answer. He delays, not because he's cold, not because he's detached, but because he's committed. He chooses strength over ease, vision over impulse, legacy over thrill. Because he knows, it's not about what feels good now, it's about who you are becoming. Patience builds resilience. It's easy to seem strong when life is moving fast, when everything is falling into place, when results are immediate and visible. But real resilience isn't forged in momentum. It's built in stillness, in the waiting, in the long stretches where you keep showing up, disciplined and steady, even when nothing seems to change. That's where most people quit. That's where they decide the work isn't worth it. But the Stoic understands. Patience isn't the absence of movement. It's the foundation of strength. Patience isn't passive. It's active endurance. It's a quiet form of courage. It's waking up every day, planting seeds, watering them with effort, trusting the process, even when the soil looks unchanged. Because growth, real growth, doesn't scream. It whispers, and those too impatient to listen miss it entirely. The world will try to rush you. It will say, if it's not happening now, it's not happening at all. It will pressure you to move faster, try harder, seek louder. But that pressure is an illusion, because patience reveals what time cannot hide. Consistency compounds, always, and the Stoic doesn't chase urgency, he chases clarity. He knows a rushed decision is often a regret waiting to happen. He knows that the one who can wait always holds the advantage. But this kind of patience takes training. It takes discipline to sit with discomfort without reaching for escape. It takes the mental toughness to delay reaction, to breathe when every instinct screams to fight or flee. It takes the maturity to see emotions not as emergencies, but as information. The Stoic feels deeply, but he doesn't get dragged by the waves. He lets time pass through him without eroding his focus. And here lies the paradox. The more patient you become, the stronger you get. Because patience trains you to rely on your inner compass instead of the external clock. It anchors you in something deeper than deadlines, deeper than urgency. It roots you in truth. It reminds you of something profound. Your worth is not tied to speed, and your identity is not tied to outcomes. You stop chasing validation and instead, you start building a foundation. You stop reaching for shortcuts and instead, you begin to love the slow, difficult path. The one that actually transforms you at the core. Because when life seems to stall, when progress feels invisible, when your efforts echo back only with silence, what do most people do? They panic, they quit, they tell themselves it's not working. But the Stoic? He doesn't collapse under silence. He zooms out, he breathes deeper, he returns to the process with trust. Because he knows, nothing meaningful blooms overnight. The person you are becoming is not forged in bursts of intensity, but in quiet, patient repetition. Day after day, choice after choice, moment after moment. And here's the paradox. Patience is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the quiet strength that says, I don't need results now because I trust they're coming. I trust my values more than my urges. I'd rather build slow and solid than fast and fragile. So if you want real resilience, not the loud, performative kind that breaks under pressure, but the quiet, unshakable kind that endures, start here. Start with patience. Practice it daily in your work, in your growth, in your relationships, even in your healing. Because resilience is not born from force, it's born from those who can wait without wavering. Wait for what matters. We live in a culture that moves at lightning speed, that praises faster decisions, quicker wins, instant gratification. The world rewards urgency, speed, and immediate results. If you hesitate, they label you weak. If you pause, they tell you you're wasting time. But what if they're wrong? What if the most important decisions in your life are never meant to be rushed? What if waiting is not delay at all, but a form of strength? The Stoic understands this truth. He knows that not everything available is valuable. He knows that not everything urgent is important. Waiting isn't about standing still. It's about standing strong. Most people fill the empty spaces in their lives with noise. They chase what's available now instead of what's meaningful later. They jump at opportunities, not because those things align with their values, but because they're afraid. Afraid that if they don't seize this one, they'll never get another chance. But fear of missing out drives decisions that lead to regret. And regret doesn't arrive as one big moment. It creeps in slowly, whispering in quiet recognition. I traded something sacred for something shiny. I said yes to what was convenient, and in doing so, I said no to what could have been deeply fulfilling. Yes, waiting is uncomfortable. It means sitting with uncertainty. It means resisting the itch to fill the void with distractions, temporary fixes, or cheap dopamine hits. But the Stoic knows discomfort is part of the process. He knows waiting, when it's intentional, is not inaction. It's refinement. It's the daily choice to filter what enters your life, to question what demands your energy, to protect the future you're building by not letting the present hijack it. When you wait for what matters, you're not just exercising patience, you're expressing self-respect. You're declaring, my time, my values, and my direction are not up for negotiation. I know who I am, I know what I stand for, and I won't compromise that for someone else's timeline. That level of clarity is rare. Why? Because most people aren't building their lives, they're reacting to them. They're pulled by trends, pressure, panic, and fear. But the Stoic? He pauses. He chooses with care. He waits because he knows the cost of settling. This kind of waiting is not passive. It's not sitting back and hoping life drops something in your lap. No, it's deliberate. It's preparing yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so that when the right opportunity appears, you are ready. Because if you're not becoming the person capable of receiving what you say you want, you're not really waiting for it, you're just fantasizing. The Stoic waits actively. He sharpens his tools in silence. He builds strength in solitude. He trains his mind to stay grounded in the present while keeping his eyes fixed on a future worth reaching. And yes, sometimes that waiting feels lonely. Sometimes it feels like everyone else is rushing ahead while you're standing still. But pause and ask, what are they rushing for? Approval? Comfort? Noise? A lot of people are moving fast, but in circles. They mistake motion for progress. They sprint without direction, chasing validation that disappears as quickly as it comes. But the Stoic? He isn't obsessed with pace. He's concerned with purpose. He'd rather take one slow step toward truth than 1,000 steps sprinting toward illusion. And that's why he waits. Not because he's weak, but because what he's building can't be rushed. His vision deserves more than convenience. It deserves commitment. So the next time you feel behind, ask yourself, behind who? On whose path? On whose timeline? The only clock that matters is the one within you, the rhythm of your values, the steady beat of your purpose. Because when you wait with clarity, you're not just saving time, you're shaping it. You're making space for the right things to arrive instead of crowding your life with whatever happens to be available. The Stoic's patience is never passive endurance. It is powerful restraint. It's the kind of waiting that sharpens character, forges inner strength, and keeps you from trading meaning for immediacy. Why? Because he knows what comes fast rarely stays. But what you wait for with purpose, with discipline, with self-respect, those things become the most unshakable parts of your life. Sacrifice now to rise later. There's a painful truth behind every great achievement, one that most people don't want to admit. The price was paid long before the reward became visible. Before the recognition, before the breakthrough, before the applause, there was sacrifice. And not just a single sacrifice, but sacrifice repeated, again and again, in silence, in solitude, in discomfort. The Stoic understands this intimately. He knows that if you want to rise above the ordinary, you must let go of the need to always feel good in the moment. You must be willing to choose what's difficult now, so you can live with pride later. This is the essence of delayed gratification. And here's the truth, it isn't punishment, it's preparation. Most people avoid sacrifice because they associate it with loss. Giving something up feels like defeat. But what if that mindset is completely backward? What if the true loss is clinging to comfort at the expense of becoming who you were meant to be? The Stoic doesn't fear sacrifice. He honors it. He doesn't see it as a burden, but as a bridge between who he is today and who he can become if he's willing to pay the cost of growth. And yes, that cost is often high. It demands your time, your energy, your attention. It asks you to show up when no one is watching, to keep going when no one claps, to say no when every part of you wants to say yes. Discipline by its nature feels restrictive in the beginning. It stings to deny yourself instant pleasure. It frustrates you to delay results. It's tiring to keep building when nothing seems to change. But here's the secret. What you're really building isn't just results. You're building capacity. You're building grit. You're building vision. You're proving to yourself that you are capable of leading your impulses instead of being led by them. And in that resistance, in that daily choice to favor long-term gain over short-term ease, you are becoming someone different. Someone stronger. Someone unshakable. Think of the person who wants to transform their life. To be healthier, wiser, wealthier, more centered. That person will face temptations every single day. The easier food, the mindless scroll, the comfortable excuse, the momentary indulgence, and every time they resist, every time they say no to what drains them and yes to what builds them, they rise a little. Not in some grand leap, but in quiet, steady elevation of character. They may not feel the change immediately, but over time, those small choices compound. They create a life that looks effortless on the outside, but inside, it was carved with discipline, with consistency, with sacrifice. The Stoic sacrifices not to suffer, but to sharpen. He knows that without sacrifice, comfort becomes a prison. It lulls you into a version of yourself that is passive, reactive, and ultimately fragile. Sacrifice is the key that breaks the cycle. It's how you reclaim your power, not from others, but from the parts of yourself that settle too quickly. And perhaps the most misunderstood part of sacrifice is this: it doesn't always feel noble. In fact, it often feels like you're falling behind, like you're missing out, like you're giving up what everyone else is enjoying right now. But the Stoic knows better. He knows that while others are seeking comfort, he is building capacity. While others are indulging, he is investing. While others are chasing, he is cultivating. And eventually, that difference shows. Not in sudden flashes, but in quiet, steady dominance. So ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice today so I can rise tomorrow? What habits, what comforts, what distractions am I clinging to that are keeping me small? Because every time you delay a craving, every time you resist an impulse, every time you choose discipline over indulgence, you're casting a vote for the person you want to become. That isn't punishment, that is transformation. You don't rise by chance. You rise by choice, and that choice is made not in some faraway future, but here, now, in the small everyday battles no one else sees. The Stoic sacrifices now not because he enjoys pain, but because he values becoming. What comes after sacrifice? Not comfort, not applause, but something far more enduring: freedom, clarity, peace, and strength. And the Stoic knows that is worth everything. Let virtue overrule impulse. There will always be moments when your instincts scream louder than your principles, when your emotions demand a quick release, a sharp word, a reckless decision, while virtue waits silently in the background, asking for something harder. It asks for restraint, it asks for discipline, it asks for a higher standard. The Stoic lives at the intersection of this tension. He doesn't pretend impulses don't exist. He acknowledges them, but he refuses to let them rule him. He knows that being human means feeling the pull of anger, greed, fear, lust, pride. But being wise means refusing to be ruled by them. Impulse is natural. You feel it in the heat of conflict when pride is threatened. You feel it when temptation whispers its easy promises. You feel it when exhaustion sets in, when your inner voice says, just skip it, just this once. And it is in those very moments, not the calm ones, where your philosophy is tested. The Stoic doesn't measure strength by how rarely he's tempted, but by how consistently he returns to virtue, even when the pressure is heavy. So what is virtue in this context? It is the guiding force that holds you steady when everything inside you wants to drift. It is patience when your temper wants to explode. It is humility when your ego wants to dominate. It is courage when fear wants to shrink you. It is honesty when lying could protect your pride. Virtue is not about appearing good. It is about choosing what is good, especially when that choice costs you something. Comfort, popularity, speed, approval. And yet the reward is worth it. Integrity, inner peace, and a life built on a foundation no one can take from you. Impulse, on the other hand, is seductive because it promises relief now. It whispers, act now, feel better immediately. But relief in the moment often leads to regret later. A sharp reply may feel powerful for 5 seconds but can cost you a relationship. A lazy excuse may buy you comfort tonight but will steal your discipline tomorrow. The Stoic sees this trait clearly and rejects it. He knows not every urge deserves obedience. Maturity is the ability to feel an emotion fully, and still not act on it blindly. This is where many people stumble. They confuse authenticity with indulgence. They say, I feel it, so I must express it. But the Stoic knows authenticity without wisdom is just chaos. He doesn't repress emotions, he masters them. He doesn't pretend he never feels rage, jealousy, or ego. He simply refuses to let them drive the car. He observes, he pauses, and then he asks, what would be the most honorable response right now? Not the easiest, not the loudest, the most honorable. Training yourself this way doesn't happen overnight. It begins with awareness, catching that split-second gap between stimulus and response. In that gap lies your freedom. In that gap, you insert choice. And that choice, repeated day after day, becomes your identity. Slowly, you begin to live not from reaction, but from alignment. You trust yourself more, because you are no longer hijacked by passing emotions. You become steady, intentional, dangerous in the best sense, because nothing controls you anymore. The Stoic doesn't expect perfection. He expects practice. He knows he will stumble, but he also knows he can return to the path, reflect, and sharpen himself each time. And little by little, his character hardens into something formidable, not flashy, but consistent. Something others trust, something others lean on. So when impulse comes, and it will, pause, breathe, don't respond to the world with your wounds, your pride, or your exhaustion. Respond with your values. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be in this moment? Let that question be your compass. Virtue is the long road, but it is the only road that leads to a destination worth staying in. Choose it again and again, until it stops being a decision and starts being who you are. Resist short-term temptation. Temptation doesn't always arrive dressed in obvious evil. Sometimes it looks like a soft couch when you promised yourself a workout. Sometimes it sounds like, just 5 more minutes, when your mind needs focus. Often, it whispers the same lie in 1,000 disguises. You can indulge now and still have everything you want later. But the Stoic knows better. He knows that every indulgence carries a hidden price, and that short-term pleasure often robs long-term peace. He knows that giving in to what feels good now often comes at the cost of what feels right later. And he knows that the most dangerous temptations are not the obvious ones, they're the subtle ones. The ones that wear the mask of harmless pleasure. The ones that whisper, it's no big deal. Each time you choose short-term ease over long-term purpose, you're not just delaying growth, you're shaping character. You're voting, silently but surely, for the version of yourself that values comfort over consistency. And those votes, those tiny yeses to ease, repeated daily, begin to weave a pattern. They don't just influence what you do, they determine who you become. You don't have to sell your soul in a dramatic bargain. You just need to say yes to too many small temptations, to surrender little pieces of your discipline one at a time. And over the years, you may wake up in a life you didn't intend to live. A life that looks fine on the surface, comfortable, even successful, but hollow within. Because the deep strength that only comes from daily discipline will be missing. The Stoic isn't immune to temptation. He feels it just like everyone else. The difference is that he prepares for it. He anticipates the tug of distraction, the pull of laziness, the seductive voice of rationalization. And when it comes, he doesn't react blindly. He pauses. He asks himself, is this taking me closer to who I want to be, or pulling me further away? That single question, asked in the heat of the moment, has the power to break the spell of impulse. Because temptation thrives in the dark, when you're tired, when you're hungry, when you're stressed, when you're not thinking clearly. That's why the Stoic trains his mind like a muscle, so that when weakness comes, his habits, not his impulses, carry him forward. Resisting temptation isn't about being rigid, it's about being free, because if you constantly chase pleasure, you're not in control, your cravings are. You become a puppet to impulse, always needing, always reaching, never resting. But when you practice the discipline of saying no, not once, but daily, something changes. You start to feel lighter, stronger, cleaner. You begin to walk through your days with less noise in your head and more power in your choices. You reclaim your time, you reclaim your attention, you reclaim your self-respect. Every temptation you resist is not just a victory, it's a brick in the architecture of your inner strength. It's proof that your values, not your moods, are in charge. And that integrity, that alignment, doesn't just produce results. It produces peace, because nothing is more exhausting than living at the mercy of your urges. And nothing is more empowering than knowing you can trust yourself to hold the line when it matters most. But remember this, resisting temptation doesn't mean denying life's joys. It means choosing them intentionally. It means enjoying something because it aligns with your values, not because it numbs your boredom or fills your emptiness. The Stoic doesn't reject joy. He simply refuses to confuse it with indulgence. He doesn't chase fleeting highs. He builds a steady, meaningful life. And that requires the courage to say no, not once, but 100 times a day. Not out of fear, but out of freedom. So ask yourself honestly, what temptations are quietly shaping the direction of your life right now? What small, seemingly harmless choices are draining your discipline in disguise? Because the cost isn't always immediate, but it's always real. And the person who can consistently resist what is easy will eventually create what is extraordinary. Long-term focus shapes greatness. There is a quiet, unshakable power in the person who chooses the long game. While the world scrambles for fast wins and viral moments, the Stoic takes a step back and asks a deeper question. Who am I becoming? That single question requires vision, not the shallow kind that only sees today's discomfort, but the kind that stretches into tomorrow's potential. Most people never ask it, not because they can't, but because they fear what the answer might demand. Because if you ask who you're becoming, you might have to confront the gap between your habits and your values. And that's uncomfortable. Long-term focus isn't about setting goals you write in a journal once a year. It's about shaping identity. It's about anchoring your life to something deeper than approval, faster than reward, and stronger than any obstacle. When you think short-term, every delay feels like disaster. Every failure feels like the end. But when your vision stretches years into the future, setbacks shift shape. A failure is not a verdict, it's a step. A slow season is not wasted, it's preparation. And so the Stoic holds that trust close. He doesn't panic when results take time. He doesn't collapse when progress is invisible. Because he isn't obsessed with speed, he is anchored in purpose. The truth is simple but hard to swallow. The things that build you the most will often feel the least exciting in the moment. Quiet repetition, focused practice, self-denial, no applause, no spotlight, no instant gratification, just you showing up again and again. And yet, hidden inside those ordinary acts is the seed of greatness. Because the real test of your strength isn't how well you perform when you're inspired, but how consistent you remain when you're tired, distracted, or unnoticed. That is where character is forged. Long-term focus demands more than just discipline. It demands discernment. It asks you to become selective with your energy, ruthless with your attention. You stop chasing every opportunity just because it's available. You stop scattering yourself across every demand, every distraction, every opinion that tries to hijack your path. The Stoic protects his focus like it's sacred, because it is. He knows that where focus goes, life follows. And if you are always chasing what is loud and urgent, you'll never have the stillness to build what is lasting and meaningful. There's a deeper layer here too. The Stoic doesn't just focus on long-term results. He focuses on long-term character. He asks, what kind of person do I want to be in 5 years? In 10? Not just what he wants to achieve, but how he wants to respond to adversity, how he wants to lead, how he wants to live. That clarity becomes his compass. It shapes his daily decisions. It helps him choose wisdom over pride, humility over ego, consistency over chaos. And every small act aligned with that future vision closes the gap between who he is and who he is becoming. This is how greatness is built, not in explosions of genius, but in years of invisible alignment. Not by doing everything perfectly, but by doing the right things repeatedly. The Stoic doesn't seek perfection, he seeks progress. He embraces the natural pace of growth, even when it feels slower than he hoped. Because he knows chasing quick success often means building on a weak foundation. But long-term focus, that's bedrock. That's where legacies are formed. Not through force, but through fidelity. And perhaps most importantly, long-term focus transforms your suffering into meaning. It reframes your setbacks into lessons. It turns your discipline into momentum. It transforms your sacrifices into investments. When you zoom out and see the bigger picture, discomfort stops being a threat. It becomes fuel. You start to realize that today's burden is tomorrow's blessing. That the weight you carry now is shaping the strength you will stand on later. So if you feel behind, tired, or tempted to quit, pause. Breathe, step back, remember. The Stoic does not measure his journey in days, likes, or numbers. He measures it in alignment, in self-respect, in the quiet knowing that even if no one sees his discipline today, the future he is building will one day speak for itself. Endure now, enjoy later. There's something profoundly noble about the person who suffers with intention. The one who sacrifices not because they enjoy the struggle, but because they believe in the life it leads to. The Stoic is not obsessed with ease. He is obsessed with meaning. He doesn't run from hard things. He prepares for them, because he knows the reward does not go to the most comfortable, but to the most committed. In a world where people crave instant pleasure and dream of progress without pain, the Stoic chooses differently. His path is paved with discomfort, discipline, and delayed satisfaction. Why? Because he knows that real joy is not born from indulgence, it is born from. When you endure now, when you stay in the hard conversation, when you push through the repetition, when you keep your word even when no one else holds you accountable, you're not just passing time. You're forging identity. Every time you show up in difficulty instead of escaping it, you become stronger. Not just physically, not just mentally, but spiritually, you build something that cannot be bought or borrowed. You build resilience. And resilience doesn't arrive with a roar. It's not loud or dramatic. It's quiet, it's steady, it's the invisible strength that keeps you standing when everything else is shaking. But here's the tragedy. In a culture addicted to quick wins, endurance is underrated. People want results in weeks for work that requires years. They chase shortcuts, expecting long-term rewards. The Stoic knows the paradox of growth. What feels painful now often becomes your power later. That person you admire, the one with unshakable calm, with discipline carved into their presence, they weren't born that way. They were built, choice by choice, sacrifice by sacrifice, day after day. So when things get hard, the Stoic doesn't collapse into, why me? He doesn't waste energy in self-pity or resentment. Instead, he sharpens his question. Is this worth it? And if the answer is yes, if the vision is still true, he stays. He pushes, he endures, but enduring doesn't mean shutting down or going numb. It doesn't mean gritting your teeth until life finally lets up. No, true endurance is not passive. It's active. It's choosing to suffer with a purpose. It's the difference between being crushed by pain and being carved by it. Passive suffering is what you feel when you stay stuck in something that drains you. When there's no goal, no direction, no hope of change. But purposeful endurance? That's sacred. That's when you step into the storm not as a victim, but as a craftsman, shaping yourself through the winds and waves. Purposeful endurance is why you keep moving through the long night, because you trust the morning will come. It's why you delay gratification, not because you're afraid to enjoy life, but because you're building something too important to interrupt. This mindset transforms how you see everything. Resistance no longer feels like punishment. It feels like proof. Proof that you're on the right path. Proof that you're carrying something worth carrying. If it were easy, everyone would do it. If it required no sacrifice, it would have no value. The Stoic uses this logic not to glorify suffering for its own sake, but to remember a timeless truth. The good life doesn't come through ease. It comes through effort. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you finally enjoy the fruits of your labor, they taste different. Sweeter, richer, deeper. Why? Because you earned them. You didn't stumble into them by luck. You forged them with your hands, your sweat, your discipline. There's a kind of pride that comes not from applause, but from knowing the price you paid, the battles you fought, the nights you endured, the sacrifices you made. And that kind of joy doesn't vanish like a cheap thrill, it stays. It roots itself in you. It reinforces your discipline. It fuels your integrity. It whispers, waiting was worth it. So the next time you're tempted to quit, when the process feels endless, when the sacrifice feels heavy, remember this. You're not doing it for the now. You're doing it for the later. You're building the version of yourself who can stand tall, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. That's the Stoic's reward, not instant comfort, but lasting freedom. Build character through discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It's a path, and character is not something you're born with, it's something you build. Moment by moment, choice by choice, especially in the hours when no one else is watching. The Stoic knows this deeply. He understands that every time you wake up on time, finish what you start, or speak the truth when lying would be easier, you're not just completing a task. You're etching values into your very being. You're building a structure inside yourself that can carry weight, not just for you, but for others too. Because real character is never loud. It's never flashy. It's not a highlight reel on display. Real character is the invisible backbone that holds your life steady when everything else is shaking. We've been taught to see discipline as the enemy of freedom, as if routines restrict us, as if boundaries limit us. But ask yourself this: what's more enslaving? Having a routine that supports your highest values, or living at the mercy of your moods, your impulses, your cravings? Discipline is not the opposite of freedom. It's the foundation of it. The one who can master his impulses is free. Free from regret, free from inconsistency, free from the shame of knowing he could have done more, been better, stood stronger. That freedom doesn't just arrive, it's chosen. Daily, character, then, is the sum of disciplined decisions. It's built in the quiet spaces. The early mornings when it's easier to sleep in, the uncomfortable conversations when it's tempting to stay silent, the lonely hours of work when quitting would feel so much easier. Character is not proven when life goes smoothly. It's revealed when life falls apart. When you're tired, unseen, unmotivated, and you keep going anyway. That's when your integrity hardens into something unshakable. The Stoic doesn't rely on motivation. He doesn't wait for feelings to carry him. He knows feelings are fleeting, but action is faithful. Discipline is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows when tested. It grows when it burns. It grows when it would be easier to coast, but you choose to persist. Every time you say no to distraction and yes to your higher aim, you add another brick to the fortress of your character. And over time, that fortress becomes something remarkable, an inner architecture so strong that no storm can shake it. But discipline, if it is to endure, must be rooted in clarity. You have to know why you're doing what you're doing, otherwise it becomes rigid, bitter, joyless, a prison you built for yourself. The Stoic's discipline is never cold or mechanical. It's alive, it's connected, it's fueled by vision, guided by values, anchored in a personal philosophy that gives meaning to the sacrifice. That's why his discipline lasts. It's not just about checking boxes or achieving trophies. It's about alignment, living in integrity with what matters most. And when others see this, when they notice how you hold yourself steady under pressure, how you move with quiet purpose, how you remain calm in chaos, they may not understand the full story, but they feel something. They sense a weight in your presence. They know you've walked through fire and came out forged, not burned. And that kind of presence inspires more than words ever could. It doesn't need speeches or slogans. It radiates from you like a steady flame in a dark room. So don't just pursue goals. Build character. Don't just chase outcomes. Strengthen discipline. Because the world doesn't need more performers, it needs more pillars. More people who can endure. More people who can lead with principle. More people who can stand tall when it matters most. Discipline is the craftsman of your character, and every choice you make is a chisel in your hand. Each decision etches something into who you are becoming. So ask yourself, what am I carving with my choices today? Am I shaping strength, clarity, resilience? Or am I carving weakness, avoidance, and regret? Choose legacy over convenience. Every day you face a silent question. Do you want what's easy now, or what's eternal later? Most people, without even realizing it, choose comfort. They choose convenience. They choose the smooth path with the least resistance. They trade their potential for a quick dopamine hit, their integrity for a flicker of approval, their discipline for a few minutes of ease. And at first, it seems harmless. But over time, those trades add up, and they cost far more than anyone expects. The Stoic thinks differently. He lives with one eye fixed on today and the other fixed far beyond it, on the kind of life that echoes when he is gone. He knows that greatness is never built on shortcuts. It's built on principles, repetition, sacrifice, and the willingness to walk away from comfort when it compromises legacy. Convenience whispers every day. Skip the workout, cut the corner, tell the half-truth, avoid the hard conversation. It always disguises itself as just this once. But the Stoic knows the truth. What starts as a small compromise becomes a lifestyle. And a lifestyle of compromise slowly hollows you out. Each time you choose ease over effort, you reinforce a weaker version of yourself. And while life may feel lighter on the surface, inside it feels emptier. Because deep down, we all know when we are living below our own standard. Legacy demands more, not just more hours or more effort, but more honesty, more courage, more faith in the unseen process. Legacy is not about fame or recognition. It's about alignment. It's about living in such a way that your actions outlast your words, that your values survive you. Legacy means making decisions that your future self, and those who come after you, will thank you for. It means saying no to pleasures that fade, and yes to principles that endure. That's why the Stoic doesn't chase validation. He doesn't need to impress. He doesn't need the crowd to cheer. He's not here to bend with trends or win fleeting applause. He's here to walk the path, to hold to values that remain, even when the world shifts. While others are obsessed with what's trending, the Stoic builds on what's timeless. While others react to the moment, he plans for the decade. And this long view, this eternal lens, gives him clarity, peace, and strength. He knows he's not here to win the moment. He's here to win his soul. And that choice often comes with a cost. Sometimes it means being misunderstood. Sometimes it means standing alone. Sometimes it means delaying the rewards everyone else is chasing. But the Stoic pays the price gladly. Because a life built on convenience may be comfortable, but it will never be meaningful. And here lies the paradox. The moment you stop chasing comfort and start living with purpose, peace begins to follow you. Not shallow peace that depends on silence or solitude, but the deep, steady peace that takes root inside you. The kind of peace that whispers, you didn't settle, you didn't bend, you stood as a craftsman of your own life, even when no one was watching. Your legacy will not be in what you say. It will not be in the image you project. It will be in what you build, in what you endure, in how you treat others, and in the quiet strength of how you live. Others may not remember your words. They may not even remember your victories, but they will remember how you treated them when it was inconvenient. They will remember how you showed up when it was hardest, how you stood tall when life tried to make you bend. That's what lingers. That's what imprints itself on the memory of others. And more importantly, that's what your soul remembers. So the next time you stand at the crossroads between what is easy and what is right, pause and ask yourself, which path builds the future I want to leave behind? Because in the end, convenience dies with the moment, but legacy outlives you. You won't always get credit for your discipline. You won't always be applauded for the sacrifices no one sees. And you won't always be recognized for the courage it takes to walk away from comfort. But that's the point. Self-respect isn't earned from validation. It's built from consistency, from the countless silent victories when no one was looking, from the small, unseen acts where you could have taken the shortcut but chose the long road instead. Those victories don't need applause. They live inside you. They form the backbone of your character. And they whisper to you in the quiet moments, I can trust myself. I am stronger than my impulses. I am aligned with who I say I want to be. The Stoic doesn't act for recognition. He acts because his soul demands it. Because he knows the person he is becoming will always matter more than the moment he's in. Recognition fades, applause quiets, but character remains. And maybe today, you needed that reminder. That your effort still matters. That your sacrifices are not wasted. That the discipline you're building now will shape a future no shortcut could ever replace. That living by principle, even in a world addicted to convenience, is not weakness. It is strength, quiet, steady, unshakable strength. So start now, not tomorrow, not when the schedule clears, not when life feels easier. Start right here, right now. Choose the path that honors your values, even when it costs you. Say no to what drains you. Say yes to what builds you. Lead yourself with dignity. Walk with direction. Live in such a way that your days testify to your values without you ever needing to explain them. And above all, remember this. No one can hand you self-respect. No crowd can give it. No applause can buy it. Self-respect is something you earn, choice by choice, day by day, in the quiet places no one else will ever see. If this episode helped you reconnect with your strength, I ask you to share it with someone who needs the same reminder. Subscribe if you haven't already. And most importantly, don't just hear these words. Live them, because wisdom only becomes real when you practice it. So step forward now with self-respect as your compass, with discipline as your shield, and with patience as your strength. Walk with quiet power, build your legacy, and remember, the world may never applaud you for it, but your soul always will.